Boning Company, and on today's video we are taking junk, literally junk that was in my yard and some things that I thrifted, and we are turning them into grungy winter decor. Let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to my channel. This has been a very busy week. In fact, I was in court 4 different times this week. I'm actually a full-time attorney. That's what I do for my real job outside of this YouTube channel and my antique booths. So anyway, I took that little video this morning from the courthouse when I was leaving because I was dressed up and I just thought, well, I might as well take it here, you know, no time like the present. So anyway, the first project is this cardinal bucket. You'll see why I called it that in a second. So I have a subscription to the Graphic Fairy. I like their printouts and they're really fun, easy, and inexpensive to print out, and you can put them in frames or you can use them to decoupage. I'm not sponsored by them or anything. I just like to use them in my booth and in various projects. So when I saw this recent cardinal print, I thought that it would be perfect to use in a wintertime makeover. And then when I saw this bucket that was sitting on my kitchen counter because I'd brought it home, I thought that they would be perfect together. So I gave that bucket 2 coats of paint in Robin's Egg Blue. That's with Rethunk Junk Paint, just to see what that color would look like. And I thought that it would go great with this cardinal print. So the first thing I wanted to do is I wanted to give it an organic tear along the edges. So I just took my paintbrush and I dipped it in water, and I'm attempting to get off that red line, that border. I didn't want it to have a border on my project, so that's what I'm doing. I'm just tearing it. I put the water on it. You can see I let it sit just for a second or two, a few seconds, and then I just started tearing, so we'll have an organic line versus a straight cut. I wanted to personally thank each and every one of you for all of your comments and your likes and for subscribing to my channel. I've just reached over 3,000 followers, and that is just awesome to me. I'm so thankful for that. And you know, if you leave me a comment and you ever leave me a comment, I'll always get back to you. If I've missed your comment somehow, please comment again and I'll definitely get back to you. While I was tearing the paper, the paint was drying. And after it had completely dried, I decided to go ahead and decoupage this paper on top of that blue galvanized bucket. Well, it's no longer galvanized, just the inside now. So I just placed it on my bucket where I wanted it to go. And then I just took out a little chippy brush and I painted some Decoupage Gel onto my project, onto the pail or bucket. And then I just rubbed the piece of paper on top of this bucket. And then once I did that, I went back with a second coat or a top coat of the Decoupage Gel. Now, I could have easily just left it like that. In fact, it was really pretty, and I questioned myself on my next step. But I decided I was going to do something else because I thought it still looked kind of new and it would have been okay like this. I could have just left it like this, but I wanted to experiment with some milk paint. I just had an itching to use some milk paint. And, you know, when you get a desire to do something, you just have to do it. So what I did now is I just took the milk paint. You're just going to pour it in a cup. And this wasn't a full package. This was just partial package of Fusion milk paint, and then you're going to put some water in there. The directions call for 1-to-1 ratio, but I prefer to put more of the paint mix versus the water. So after you mix it up, you're going to let it sit there for about 10 minutes until it gets to a consistency of a melted milkshake, and then you're going to just apply it to your piece. Now, I kind of messed up. For some reason, I didn't get that footage of myself applying the different coats to the bucket. However, in the very next project, you're going to see a tutorial on how to use milk paint, and I think you're going to really enjoy the effects. So what I'm doing right now is I took out my hair dryer, which I also have a heat gun. However, who knows where it is, somewhere in the garage. We're supposed to be cleaning that out this weekend. We'll see about that. So I took my hairdryer and I turned it on high heat, and I'm just drying the milk paint. When you dry the milk paint like this, it will actually cause some cracking. And guess what? I missed one other, some more footage. I didn't get to show you the footage where I applied the dark wax. However, you will see that here in just a few minutes. So stay tuned for that, because I really think you're going to enjoy how that came out, and you'll be able to see the step-by-step tutorial. So I thought about reversing the projects, but I thought I just really wanted to start out with this cardinal, because I think cardinals are pretty popular now. I know they've been very popular for a long time. My grandmother always loved cardinals. My mom loved cardinals. So I thought this would be a great project to start out with. So after I had put the wax on initially, I went back and distressed the picture a little bit because I thought it looked too new, and then I put some more of the fusion dark wax. I love how this turned out. I love all the cracking that the milk paint gave to this piece. You can see the robin's egg blue underneath. It looks kind of grungy to me, but it looks a lot older and just has a lot more character in my opinion. So if you like that project, I would love for you to give me a like. Okay, so the next project is this set of vintage shoe stretchers. I picked these up at a thrift store in Edisto, South Carolina over Thanksgiving. We had a lot of fun. We went thrifting to 2 stores. There's hardly any stores or restaurants. There's just a few restaurants, 1 grocery store, but there were 2 thrift stores on the outside of town, and one day we went over there and checked them out, and it was a lot of fun. My husband even went into one of them, which is, a big shocker after the fact. I think he was just checking to see if I was under control, which I'm typically not in the thrift store. But anyway, so I picked up these shoe stretchers, and my mom and dad went with me, and that was a lot of fun. We all went and looked around and had a good time with that. So I picked these up. They were marked $10. The green sticker meant that they were 75% off, so I picked them up for only $2.50. I had always seen these, in antique stores and things like that, but I had never seen them in the thrift stores until lately, and all of a sudden I see them all the time. But I thought that this set would be really cool to make over because they looked old, kind of old. The metal part was all rusty and crusty, and then the end part looked old, but the wood part in the front had some writing on it with markers, and just didn't really look that great, and I didn't feel like sanding it. So I thought that these would be a perfect piece to make over, and I thought that the milk paint would be really fun on this piece because it could make these go from looking kind of vintage to really old and antique. So here I am with that milk paint, and it had been sitting for about 10 minutes, so I stirred it up. I actually did this project first, and then I decided to go back to that cardinal bucket and put the milk paint over that because I'm a little extra. Like I said, most people would have probably just left it alone, but I thought I would do this milk paint. Okay, so this milk paint is really liquidy, and you have to put several coats for it to get thick. I ended up putting a little bit too much water. You can see how liquidy it is. It's much more fluid than regular paint. So I just kept putting on a couple of different layers of the milk paint, and then I decided to take out my hairdryer, put it on high heat, and just started, drying it off and letting it work its magic. So here in a minute, I'm going to freeze the screen a couple of times so you can see the texture. So if you see that happen, don't think that, something's wrong with the video and it's stopping. I did that on purpose. Well, you can see where the drip marks were on the side. At first I thought it might have messed it up, but it really doesn't. You can just go back with your milk paint, and then it just kind of reconstitutes the paint, and it just, kind of took out some of those drip marks, but it really didn't matter because I think that adds to the character of your project. I ended up adding 3 different coats of the milk paint, and this is what it looked like after it had dried. It's all chippy and crusty, but I thought that I would enhance it a little bit, plus it needs a top coat. So I took out my dark antiquing wax from Fusion Mineral Paint, and then I gave it a quick coat, and then I wiped it away with a paper towel. Okay, so this is when I do the freeze frame. I did it this part, not back a second ago when I mentioned it. So that is how it looks. Isn't that gorgeous? I just love that rusty, crusty, chippy milk paint finish. Now, milk paint doesn't have to do that, but if you dry it with the heat gun, it will crack like this, and it gives you that really old antique look. Have you ever used milk paint? If not, you should give it a try because it's really easy to use. It gives it a really cool effect, and it's just a lot of fun to play with. So the thing about milk paint is it comes in many, many different colors. I actually carry Fusion milk paint along with the Fusion mineral paint, and I have it on my website. So if you're interested in any of these projects that I'm making and you'd like to purchase any of the supplies, I will have them linked in my description of my video. So you can just go over there and click on it, and you can check it out. And you can check out my website. It's www.jbowenandcompany.com. Okay, so this is the next project. I actually have a pile of wood. I think we had a tree or something that was cut down, and we have a little fire pit in the backyard. So we have a stack of wood back there. And so a while back, I had used my little circular saw, and I cut out these little wood rounds from my wood pile. I thought about buying some on Amazon, and then I was like, I've got all that wood and I could just cut it right up. Y'all, I'm keeping my brother's dog right now, so you can hear him in the background. So I had used these in a project before, but I didn't like how they turned out, so I thought that I would redo these. I had used these Vintage Snowflake Stamps from IOD on this project before, but I just wasn't loving it, so I kind of deleted, or I didn't kind of, I actually deleted that project and never showed you it. But I thought if I use this Robin's Egg Blue paint, I think my son is home from school. He's actually in college. He's taking his finals this week. So I think the dog sees him. My son is actually in the dual enrollment program, so he's a junior in high school, but he's taking full-time college classes. Anyway, so I took out my Vintage Snowflake stamp from IOD, and I inked them up really good, and then I just pressed them right on these wood rounds. And I didn't mention this earlier, but after I cut these wood rounds, I did leave them outside for about a week to dry, and that was, I think, probably August, September. So they're good and dry now. You don't want to paint on them just immediately. You want to let them dry out. So anyway, there they are. I added the stamps, and I'm going to show you the back side here in a second. Here you go. These are the stamps that I did initially. At first I tried it with white, and I was kind of disappointed the white didn't show up as good as I thought. So then I stamped over them with some of the black. I was just playing around, and now I decided, you know what, I'm going to grunge these up a little bit too, because they look just a little bit too new. So I took out my wax, and I'm going to put a layer of the antiquing wax on these too. Hey y'all, I want to show you a little something. So I keep all of my stamps in these little envelopes that IOD sells. And I didn't mention this earlier, but I do sell IOD products as well. But I sell these envelopes, and they are awesome for keeping your stamps and everything secure and in place, because those little bitty stamps, especially these little ones from the Vintage Snowflakes, I actually lost a few because I really have no idea what happened to them, but they're gone now. I still have some of them, but those envelopes, they will keep your stuff in order for you. I recently, a couple of nights ago, put all my stamps and then all my transfer scraps and all that into these individual envelopes, because it keeps it nice and tidy. Otherwise, you know, if you've experimented with the transfer sets and stamps, you'll know that those things can get all over the place if you're disorganized like myself. So now I'm just adding some of that wax, some of that antiquing wax. And when I did that, it was really cool. On the back side, it actually made the white show up. I thought that was really cool. But now they just look a little bit grungier. So I think I'm going to make these into magnets, and I think I'm going to give them as a gift because I know someone that would really like these, I think. And so I'm just going to add some magnets to the back of them. I haven't done that yet. You see how the white showed up once I added that antiquing wax? I thought that was so cool. It stood out a lot more. You can see it's just kind of embedded in the wood. But I'm going to add magnets to the natural side. You could also turn these into little ornaments. I think that would be cute. But I think I'm going to make them into magnets. But I haven't done that. But here in a second, you are going to see the final reveal. So what do you think about this project? Do you think these are cute? Do you have any wood in your backyard that you could just slice up? You can always buy these wood rounds on Amazon, but like I said, why buy them when I can use the wood I have for free? I had a lot of fun with this project, and these are my snowmen. There's going to be 2 different varieties. So a while ago, I picked up, it was like part of a fence or something, and I cut off all these pickets. I brought them home. I cut off all these pickets. And anyway, I ended up getting rid of most of them because it looked really junky in my backyard, but I kept about 5 of them. And I finally got around to using them. So I just sliced them up into about 1-inch squares or 1-inch blocks. And I thought that they would be perfect to make snowmen out of. So I ended up taking my spray paint and I gave them a quick coat of paint. And then I took out my Midnight Rethunk Junk Paint. But you can use, of course, any black, any light pink, and any orange. I'm just trying out my new Rethunk Junk Paints, which I also sell those as well. And I'm making these over. The funny thing is, when I started making the faces, they kind of look like those little ghost characters or something instead of snowmen. So I thought, I remembered when we were kids and we'd make snowmen, their eyes would always be the charcoal, I think you call them briquettes, I'm not quite sure, but like the charcoal from our, charcoal bags, because my dad always had that around. So anyway, I went back and I made them into larger squares, and then I took the orange and I made little noses. You want to start at the tip and go backwards because it'll be thinner at the tip of the carrot and it gets thicker at the back. And you can make whatever kind of faces you want to. In fact, I looked up snowman faces on Pinterest, and there's all different kinds that you can, copy if you want to, but I just made them this way. I just used my little bitty paintbrush to dot the little mouth, and then I came back with the blush color and I gave them some blush cheeks because I remember Kristen over at Simply Joy had taught us when I was in Wisconsin about making these snowmen, not these particular ones, but different ones, and she put little blushy cheeks on them. So I thought that I would do that. So when I did it the second time, I decided to put the cheeks first because I should have done that. It just makes it a little bit easier than trying to work the cheeks in afterward. So I'm just freehanding this. You can always draw it if you want to, but it's really simple. I don't think that's necessary because you really can't mess up these snowmen. You're just having fun. This is a great craft that you can do yourself, or you could do with your children or grandchildren. Or if you're a teacher, these would be fun to make too. So on these particular ones, you can tell I did it off camera, but I used my E6000 glue and I glued them together. And then I put I think I put a can of paint or a jar of paint on top of them so that they would dry. But anyway, I went ahead and I drew their little faces on, and then I took out a red, I believe this is Barn Red, and I decided to put some little buttons on the snowmen. And after I had completed this step and it had dried, I decided that it would be cute to put a little scarf on these snowmen. So I took out this red striped fabric. And one thing I've never mentioned to you before is that I have a ton of fabric. I love to sew and do crafts, and I've done that for a long time, although I haven't really sewn in years and years and years. But I do collect fabric. I always collect the red and white fabric because I used to make a bunch of different candy cane and different projects for Christmas. So I have quite a bit, different styles. I pick it up at thrift stores. It's so much cheaper when you buy it at thrift stores. You can get it basically yards and yards and yards for next to nothing, sometimes like $1 or $2 for tons of fabric. But I thought I would just do a little scarf here. So I just ripped off, or I tore the fabric. I started it with a little cut and then I tore it. And they were about 10-inch pieces. And then I just tied them in a knot. You could always glue it, but it was pretty tight, so it really didn't need to be glued. I thought I would show you a few examples of my projects. So those were some of the candies and candy canes that I made over the past several years. Anyway, so after I tied the little scarves, I thought that they were a little bit long, so I ended up cutting them a little bit shorter. So what do y'all think about these crafts with fabric? Do you like these kind of crafts? Because I enjoy making them, and if you do, I can make some more of these as well. So just let me know in the comment if you like these kind of crafts with fabric. So you can also kind of fray the edges, because I did use scissors. You can just kind of fray them. And so a little funny side note, I have tons of these little kind of scissors. I pick them up at thrift stores, and my daughter says that they're creepy. She doesn't like them. She calls them the scary scissors. So now I decided to make little hats for these little snowmen. So what I did is I took the fabric and I just folded it over, so it's about 3 inches on either side. I just folded it like that, and then with my scissors I'm going to cut little triangles, leaving one end, the top of the hat, still together. These are just going to be little no-sew hats, but of course you can always sew them if you choose to, but I just want to do something quick and easy, so I'm cutting these little triangles. There'll be 3 of them, and they're going to end up looking like those little toboggans. That's what I call them, the little toboggan hats that they wore in A Christmas Story, the really long ones. And my children, my little kids, they had this really long hat. It was so cute when they were little, and it was striped like this. So anyway, it's kind of like that. You just want to take it and you're going to hot glue it. But what I ended up doing is I still didn't like those scarves the way they were looking, so I cut little bitty strips at the end. I thought that looked just a little bit better. And I'm just going to go ahead and do that on each of them. And then I'll be back to making the hats. So you're just going to need to heat up your glue gun for this as well. And I just will take it out, and then I'm going to put glue along the edge of the hat. You could stuff these with a little bit of cotton, but I chose not to. I liked how they look as is. So I also decided to fold up the brim of the hat a little bit. I thought it looked just a little bit nicer. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to, that's where you see I'm folding up the brim of the hat right there. And I ended up gluing it a little bit. And then you're just going to just hot glue it right there to your snowman, and then you'll glue it to the back, and then you'll just glue the sides down. And that's all you do. It's really simple, really easy, a lot of fun. You see how you could help your children or grandchildren make something like this really easy. And after I got it glued down, I took out a jar of buttons. I found these buttons at that same thrift store in Edisto, South Carolina. They're gold buttons. They were $10, which seemed a little bit higher than I might normally pay for just regular buttons, but these were all gold and they were kind of fancy, and I thought, you know, I could make a lot of projects with these, and if I don't make projects, I'm sure I could separate them and sell them for a decent amount in my booth, you know, if I ever got around to doing that. But I took out a button and I ended up gluing it to the end of that hat, the tip of the hat, and then it caused the tip of the hat to fall down. I thought that I was going to be finished with that project, but once again I thought it just looked too freshly painted, so I took out my sandpaper and I just gave it a little scuff. I scuffed up the paint and around the edges, And then I thought that I would just grunge it up with some of the dark wax. So here in a second, you're going to see me do the same thing to the other snowmen because I just didn't think that it looked good enough as is. So here I'm adding that aging wax. I called it antiquing wax a second ago because that's what I call it, but it's actually called aging wax or dark wax. And so I'm just kind of grunging it up, and now it looks kind of like a dirty antique snowman. One time my oldest son had a play when he was in elementary school, and they were called snurts, and it was snow mixed with dirt. It becomes a snurt. Anyway, that's kind of what it reminded me of. It kind of gave me a quick little chuckle. But here I am just aging them up. I'm just adding the wax. I'm wiping it away, and I think it just looks, you know, a little bit older and more antique with a little bit more character. I thought about making the block snowmen into either ornaments or little photo holders, but my children are still young, so I thought that they would have fun. They're 8 and 9, playing with these little blocks, stacking them up and playing with them. So I left them like that. So thank y'all so much for watching today. I am so pleased that you are here with me. And if you enjoyed these projects, please give me a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. Y'all tell me which one of these projects was your favorite. And if you're in the mood for more Christmas videos, I linked my latest video right there in the comments.